So
Perfect.
the next question that we left off on is what is the most effective learning environment for students?
Okay, so I would have to say when the kids feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
they have a sense of community. This is where I go back with that community circle. Once that's built,
Uh-huh.
the kids are rather productive in the sense that they don't even care who they're paired up with because they just know everyone already.
Yeah,
So they're comfortable with just pairing up with whoever. It's not always just like their friends. They're okay with just being spontaneous. So I honestly have to say where they feel safe and have a sense of community.
definitely. I mean, I would agree 100%. I feel like
Yeah. Mhm.
there's a little bit more confident in that kind of,
Yeah.
situation. So the next question I have for you then is what's the best way of managing a classroom?
Okay. So having structured um, kind of ground rules. So this is how I start off with the school year is just having it structured. This is how this goes, and everything step by step. Repeating it often in the very beginning of the school year so that the mindset's already kind of going in that direction, and they know what's expected of them. So definitely going over rules and setting the expectation pretty high
Yeah.
so that kids will learn to follow. And of course, it's not always perfect. It sounds like, oh yeah, this is all I do, and it just happens. Of course,
Yeah.
always redirecting and a lot of positive praise too. They like to hear it as well. Even if
Awesome.
they're sixth graders, they like to
Yeah.
hear that they're doing a good job, or just rewarding, as much as possible, even if it's verbal.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure no matter how old they get, it's always
Yeah.
good to know you're doing a good job.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
so the next question I have is how do you demonstrate knowledge and apply it in a way that the students will understand it?
So for myself, obviously, I learn along the way as well, especially when we gain new curriculum.
Yeah.
I want to say just going over material myself as much as I can. There's times where I do go off of our curriculum to kind of research a little bit more, just on other platforms so that I can add to my own knowledge.
Hmm.
Being a lifelong learner, I, want to continue to read on, books or read on, anything that might be of a new era with the kids. I mean, when I
Uh-huh.
started 19 years ago, it was very different from what it is now. Kids didn't have cell phones, social media, all of that was much different or
Yeah.
non existent with the kids as it is now. So just kind of keeping updated with things that are going on at the moment, be knowledgeable of where the kids are at, what are their likes and dislikes, so that I also can know a little bit more about them. And in regards to academics, just being that lifelong learner and learning myself and putting it in the perspective of how I would want to be learning myself. So being that student. If visuals would help me, then I'm going to add visuals to my learning or my teaching with the students. So, bringing it down to their level with
Hmm.
whatever it is that I'm learning. Small group instruction, whatever it takes to get to their level.
Absolutely. And it's like that question earlier is like, how do you
Hmm.
help a student reach that potential? Um,
Absolutely. Even if it's small group setting or
mhm.
sometimes it fosters that they also do it on their own. They sometimes are very proactive in saying I didn't get it. And
Mhm.
it's like we might as well do it over again. If you didn't get it, I'm sure there's other kids that didn't understand it, and it helps with the discussion and conversation that takes place. But definitely being a long learner, lifetime long learner for myself, and putting it in the eyes of kids, and
Mm.
trying to be as engaging as possible.
Cool, very cool. Okay, so next question is how do you best lesson plan?
So I am very fortunate that I do have a great team. So we kind of go over, we're almost on the same page on everything. We actually do our meetings. We have data teams, is what we call them, where the students are with an enrichment wheel teacher. So the kids are doing it, they're in class, but they're, or virtual in this case,
Mhm.
with another teacher that provides their own lessons. So I don't have to like create sub plans or anything. So I joined this group for 2 hours, and we kind of go over what we're planning to teach. Sometimes we do backwards mapping where we know what our end goal is and how are we going to get there. So we do meet twice. Every other week, and then of course if we need to meet before that, we are constantly sending messages back and forth. We do have our curriculum that we have to use, so also looking at our district pacing guides, that also is kind of what guides our lesson planning, is looking at the district expected pacing guides, and then going from there on how we go about teaching it is where we talk together, see what we find that's also adding to our curriculum to make it more engaging with the students. And that's been very helpful. I have a great team, so we're in it together.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that helps a ton.
Absolutely, especially when we first went virtual, it's kind of like, what is this? Like, we got a hang of it now, but in
Yeah,
the beginning, it's like, what are we gonna do? It's just kind of getting ourselves out of that comfort zone of what we were used to doing, pen and paper. Some technology was added, but obviously now it's all electronic based. We need to use their platforms and
yeah,
embed their assignments. So that's all been new, but at the same time now we're pretty comfortable with it.
yeah. Awesome. Okay, so the next question I have is, how do you prevent instances of intolerance, racism, or bullying in your class? And what are your discipline techniques regarding these notions?
Okay, so in regards to that, I obviously do the community circle Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I work on, being tolerant, being open to others' differences and things like that. And so besides doing games and trying to build that community, we also address those things.
Okay.
Just like I said, we talked about like what happened in the Capitol. And even though I don't gauge one way or another, I do kind of look at the whole picture, and we talk about how was there, another way that people could have handled it or what have you. I also just what it lends itself to holidays like Martin Luther King. I made sure that this month of January we read about civil rights, and we talk about, how that set the paving stone of what we are currently looking at today, and how sometimes we still need to backtrack a little because we're still dealing with, racism and things like that, but how they can kind of change that, looking at themselves as an individual and what can you do. We can't fix everyone, but what can you do to make things better? So community circle is definitely a time to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like I said, with the activities that are going on next month is African American History Month or Black History Month.
Yeah.
We are currently going to be planning. That's one of the things that we have set aside. We select books that we will do read alouds with the kids that pertain to particular events in our history that lends itself to racism and stereotypes and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
always keeping that open mind. And of course, if somebody does something that unfortunately is the opposite of what I'm trying to address, of course, their student is spoken to and kind of seeing what could have been different.
Mm-hmm.
How could we have changed that behavior, or why was it not appropriate? And, trying to get the kids to treat others the way they want to be treated.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so actually the last question here, it's at Point Loma Nazarene, administrators
Mm-hmm.
place high importance on various dispositions such as honesty, integrity, honor, humility, self-awareness, perseverance, and diligence. So,
Mm-hmm.
which among these or any of your own dispositions do you identify with the most and why?
Ooh, can you read those again?
Yeah, sure. So it was honesty, integrity, honor, humility, self-awareness, perseverance, and diligence. Or it could even be one of your own.
Gosh, it's hard to pick just one. But I have to say that not just looking at it in the teacher's perspective, but
Hmm.
also in the student's perspective, I think for me, I would go with perseverance. Just because I do want to, things do get hard, obstacles get in our way, and just continuing to always putting that, keeping yourself walking forward, keep going,
Yeah.
even if you have to crawl, just keep going
Uh-huh.
and doing your best, because as much as I want to tell you, oh yeah, community circles this, and I set the guidelines in the beginning, it's not always a happy medium all the time.
Yeah.
So, challenges do come our way. So I would say that perseverance, keep pushing through, keep working hard. Being a lifelong learner, as I said, a lot of things change along the way, and just continuing to be, a few steps forward, even though we sometimes fall. And I see it as a child's perspective. I tell that to my kids all the time. Like, I understand it's hard, but you have to persevere. Do the best
Yep.
that you personally can do. If it's hard to do 10 problems, can you do at least 3 problems? Show me that you can do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so just always trying to give yourself some direction, no matter how long it takes you to that end goal. So, but yeah, I would want to say some of the others that you mentioned, but I'll pick the one.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was the last one. So well,
Mm-hmm.
first, thank you, and let me pause my recording here.